Hunting terrorists in the skies above Baghdad, there are two things you need. Faith in God and a Hellfire missile.
Conservative warrior, John James.
I flew Apaches because I wanted to take the fight to the enemy. Now I'm volunteering for a new fight, to secure the borders, defend our constitutional rights, and protect Michigan jobs. I'm John James. I hate politics, but I love this country, and I approve this message because America is worth fighting for.
Evening. Whoa, Diamond already off the bat. Hey, Neil. Hello, Cindy. I see you're in Kami, California. Well, I hope we get Newsom out of there really quick. Indeed. Thank you for the diamond. Oh my gosh. It is already Thursday. It's amazing. Week has gone by so fast. So I just got a little bit early, and since I don't want to step on anybody's scoping, I thought I'd jump on and kind of do the thing, you know. Welcome to Fighting for the Republic. I gotta order pizza for my grandkids. Okay. So the president was on earlier, talk about deregulations. I will probably play that at a different time. But I wanted to catch up on the Tucker Carlson story that I played for you last night. So this lady, Susan Rosenberg. Now, I thought she was with Weather Underground, but apparently not. She is now head of or involved in Black Lives Matter. But she's also considered a terrorist, and she's a cop killer. She obviously presumed innocent in her mind. She did serve time, but was pardoned by Bill Clinton, of course. You know how much he loves people like that. You know, those are his pals. But before we get started, please support John James, the gentleman I just played the commercial from, for Senate for Michigan. He's a real good guy, and he needs everybody in Michigan's support. And please support your local candidates for GOP and make sure they're MAGA. Check their background. Do everything we can, especially in Kentucky, and help Mitch McConnell. They seem to be really putting up a stink as far as the Democrats don't know the validity of the report, but they say they're out fundraising, which probably is not true, but we can't take that chance, can we? And we must get the House and support any congressman or woman that is worthy. Number one, Romney is not. Don't be a Romney. Don't be a Susan Collins either. We need people to take their place. We need real conservatives, not phony Republican rhinos who are actually Democrats in disguise. So make sure we always continue to fight. We cannot afford to lose it. That is for sure. On to the first little tidbit here of Susan Rosenberg. This was in 2000 from 60 Minutes. I just happened to Google her name and see what she was about and everything. When you're looking through all this kind of stuff, it just flies at you, and you don't have a lot of time to research it. You're kind of going on the fly, and it happens. So here is this weird person. Oh, wrong one.
Units solitary confinement, maximum security conditions in the hardest places for women.
Susan Lisa Rosenberg has been in prison for 16 years and may yet serve another 20 for a murder she was never tried for. If the government gets its way, she will not be paroled.
When you are defined as a cop killer, there's nothing more that you can do.
I'm Mike Wallace.
I'm Morley Safer.
I'm Ed Bradley.
I'm Steve Croft.
I'm Leslie Stahl. Those
This
stories
was
and
when it was
Andy
actually
Rooney
good.
Tonight on 60 Minutes.
Her name is Susan Lisa Rosenberg. For the past 16 years, she's been in prison. If the government has its way, she could spend another 20 behind bars for a crime she says she did not commit and knew nothing of. A crime she's never even been tried for. The murder of a security guard and 2 police officers in 1981 during the botched robbery of a Brinks armored truck in the Nanuet shopping mall near the village of Nyack, New York. The Brinks murders were a stunning blow to a tiny community that lost 2 of its most popular police officers. Every year on the anniversary, October 20th, the village of Nyack holds a ceremony of remembrance. The robbery was the last violent gasp of left-wing radicalism and one of the most notorious crimes of that era. Not your typical heist, but a political crime executed by a group of black militants who used radical white women like Susan Rosenberg as cover. She's 45 years old now and has been in prison for 16 years. A leftover, it seems, of another America.
October 20th, 1981.
Yes.
The Brinks robbery in the shopping mall in Nanuet. People you know are involved in it, correct?
Yes.
What was your reaction to this?
Horror. Horror. I was very upset.
Horrified enough to say, look, without me, I'm getting out of this group. This is really bad stuff. They're killing people out there.
No, not right then. Subsequently, I would say that, but not right then. I wish I had.
Rosenberg was working as a clinician in a Harlem health clinic alongside at least 2 of the men involved in Brinks. The clinic did actually treat people, but the government maintained it was also a gathering place for a group of revolutionaries and a staging ground for a string of violent crimes.
How could you not have known what was going on?
Well, I didn't. I didn't know what was going on. That wasn't my role. You know, if anyone had sort of self-defined roles. I really was a political person, and don't get me wrong. I think that there is a fine line between supporting something publicly, politically, and what then the effect of that is. I supported the right of oppressed people to armed struggle, yes. I did. That didn't mean I did it.
4 people were arrested in Nyack on the day of the Brinks crime. A manhunt was launched for the others, and the FBI rounded up dozens of people who were associated with the Harlem Clinic. Rosenberg was not among them, but almost a year later, without ever having been questioned, she was indicted as a conspirator.
And what did you do?
I didn't turn myself in.
You ran.
I ran. I fled. I didn't trust the government. I already had great cause not to. I think I was really afraid. And I believe now that was the fatal mistake of my life.
How did this child of privilege, daughter of a New York dentist, privately educated, an early life that was an American tapestry, find the way to what is effectively a life sentence?
Your voice teacher said, Susan, you got to choose art or politics.
said, if you go to one more demonstration and you scream and lose your voice, you will never sing another note.
Is that a regret?
Yes, it's a great regret. Sure, yes.
She was a child of the 60s. With her parents' blessing, she was marching in civil rights demonstrations at age 7. At 11, she was protesting the Vietnam War. By her early 20s, she was a fully committed revolutionary.
It was a choice, you know. Life is complicated, and people are really complicated, and I'm really complicated, and I know that, and I know that it's hard to put yourself in my shoes. Why would you want to?
John Castellucci, author of The Big Dance, an account of the Brinks case, says Rosenberg, the revolutionary, stood out.
She seems to be really one of the most fervent and almost rabid members of the group when it comes to the question of whether violence should be used in the furtherance of revolutionary goals.
So she was a totally committed revolutionary.
In words. However, when push came to shove and she had to act, she went to pieces.
After the Brinks indictment, she was on the run for 2 years, considered armed and dangerous by the FBI, part of a diminishing remnant of the radical underground.
We're caught, but we're not defeated.
She was caught in 1984 along with an accomplice and an arsenal of explosives and weapons in New Jersey. They were handed the longest sentence in U.S. history for possession of weapons, 58 years behind bars.
Long live the armed struggle.
On top of that, she was faced with the Brinks allegations. She maintained her innocence of any involvement and demanded to be tried. The government refused and dropped the Brinks charges, saying it was satisfied with that tough 58-year weapons sentence.
You understand why. To a lot of people watching, would say what the government said. We're not going to do better than 58 more years, so.
This case ruined my life. I was labeled and defined by this case. And when they could really just have taken me to trial, they opted not to. And I think that they opted not to because they had a bad case.
You wanted a trial.
At that point, I did. I had fled, and I had ruined my parents' life. I'd ruined a lot of people's lives. And I had this heavy charge. And I wanted to
the murder of police officers.
Yes, I wanted to challenge that because I didn't do that.
In 1998, she applied for parole and had a stack of support. The prison psychologist who said she was the most outstanding inmate he'd ever dealt with. Her achievement of a master's degree. The curriculum she wrote and the Bureau of Prisons now uses in counseling female inmates. The Bureau of Prisons report that she was fully rehabilitated and posed no threat to society. She had reason to be optimistic. But before her hearing, the federal prosecutor raised a red flag with this letter to the Parole Commission, arguing against her release. It says her crimes were too enormous to overlook, that she was intimately involved in Brinks, and it points to evidence of her fingerprints in a Brinks getaway car that crashed after a police chase.
Everyone in the car fleeing from the scene was arrested. She wasn't in the getaway car. The getaway car belonged to a friend, not implicated in the case. What were her fingerprints found on? A map, an owner's manual in the glove compartment?
Such evidence, says her lawyer, Mary O'Melveny, is pure distortion. The government's claim, for instance, that Rosenberg's fingerprints were found in the gang's hideouts, including one that was used as a refuge after Brinks.
The FBI analyzed thousands and thousands of fingerprints in those safe houses, and they found no fingerprints of Susan Rosenberg. What did they find fingerprints on? Political leaflets. Political leaflets that get handed around. Everybody acknowledges that she was a political activist.
The case against Rosenberg, her indictment, was based on the accounts of 2 gang members the government had made deals with. The testimony of one against other suspects simply crumbled in court. He was the one who placed Rosenberg behind the wheel of a second getaway car.
An FBI fingerprint analysis showed no fingerprints in that car. But Does the Parole Commission have any opportunity to really assess that? Does Susan Rosenberg have any opportunity before the Parole Commission to contest that? No.
I sat in front of the Parole Commission, or the parole examiner, and he said to me, he said, well, you know, Miss Rosenberg, you're 11 years clear conduct. You're clearly a different person than you were. I have no doubt about that. I have two choices. I can either recommend immediate parole, or I can take this case, the Brinks robbery, into account and hold you responsible for 3 murders. And there was no question about it. You know, so I'm now in prison, I feel, for an indictment.
On the face of it, the government is keeping her in prison by using that 18-year-old indictment to maintain the appearance of her involvement in Brinks. The federal government will not argue its case against her in court, nor will it answer reporters' questions about the Rosenberg case. It merely accuses.
It is extraordinary for the Parole Commission to say untested, unproven allegations will make us keep you in jail for 15 more years.
That have nothing to do with the reason she's in jail.
Nothing at all. We looked at every case we could find to see if the Parole Commission had ever done anything like this before, and they never have.
When you are defined as a cop killer, there's nothing more that you can do. If it's in your label, what's called your prison jacket, how you are defined, that's going to be how you're treated. I spent almost 11 years in isolation units, solitary confinement, maximum security conditions, in the hardest places for women. But it was kind of expected because I understood what my jacket was. And, you know, when I didn't get parole, I was very upset, but I wasn't shocked because I understood and had from the beginning that that's the government's view of me. Wrong, but their view.
Last year, Rosenberg argued in U.S. District Court that the Justice Department had kept her in prison illegally by raising the Brinks indictment with the Parole Commission 10 years after the charges had been dropped. The court found the government's action to be troublesome, but said it was still legal to keep Rosenberg in prison for at least 15 more years on the basis of the untried conspiracy allegations.
I've done everything I know in my heart on every level to take responsibility for what I think I have to. I'm not going to take responsibility for something that the government thinks that I should because they think I should, and I didn't do it. I'm not going to do that. But to the degree that I feel like I've made big, huge mistakes, yeah, I don't know what else I can do. I don't know what else I can do. Yeah, sure. I would love to go home.
To that end, Ms. Rosenberg has filed a petition for clemency with the White House. It is traditional to consider such petitions in the last few weeks of a president's term.
Well, you know, apparently she has not learned a lesson because she is with Black Lives Matter, which it kind of sounds like a little bit of a fringe group, if you will. Sounds like old habits are hard to break. There's nothing wrong being political or nothing, but when you are within a violent, extremist group like BLM, well, you gotta wonder. So you can say anything you want, I guess. Instead, the female-run communist terror group hell-bent on destruction. The handcuffs, of course, you have Susan Rosenberg there, Judy Clark, Betty Ann Duke, turned into radical and caused havoc with bombs and in the 80s. Duke remains a federal fugitive of justice. This article was on January 4th, but it gives you a little bit of an insight of who she is. Handcuffed women. The handcuffed woman, federal investigators swarmed by Cheryl Hill of New Jersey storage unit where her combat materials were stashed. But not even the hardened, homegrown terrorist, like 29-year-old Susan Steinberg, was ready to die in November night in 1984. Put out the effing cigarettes, she growled at an officer who had unwisely lit up. Rosenberg knew that the unit was stuffed with 740 pounds of a leaking explosive nitroglycerin oozing from the poorly maintained couch of dynamite stolen from a Texas construction firm 4 years earlier. This dangerous and highly unstable. Rosenberg knew that the unit was stuffed with 400 pounds of leaking explosives. The nitro was okay. Sorry. Rosenberg and an accomplice, Tim Blank, were held off the local police station as the feds decisively dismantled the arsenal of fear in the small breaches across the Delaware River and a bomb disposable unit in Pennsylvania. So back then, now she claimed that, she was innocent, we didn't do nothing wrong. But you get caught with all that kind of material today, you would get a worse sentence than what she did back then. Of course, as I pointed out, Bill Clinton did pardon her. So, did not Patty Hearst say the same thing? She was a rich kid, intelligent, yet she got mixed up with some bad groups, lefties, and robbed a bank. And we all should know the story by now. So I think that's kind of what is going on here. She's just another Patty Hearst. Oh, I'm innocent, yet you're caught with the goods. And of course, Patty Hearst was also caught on camera. Moving on to some campaign news. A new Trump campaign manager vows to expose Joe Biden as Prisco transfers power. I really like Prisco. He was a really nice guy. He's very energetic. I have no idea who the new guy is. President Trump's outgoing election campaign manager and his successor met Thursday with staffers in the campaign headquarters in Virginia for the transfer of power type of ceremony. Hours later, new campaign manager Bill Steven said that the person he replaced will remain heavily involved. Oh, good. So he will still be involved. That's very good news. In the message to the Trump campaign staffers, Steppen wrote, "Our goal is clear, to win each day and have left until the election day." Steppen also vowed to expose Democratic challenger Joe Biden, who he charged as a helpless tool of the extreme left. No, he's just a tool bag. Steppen's statement in the earlier all hands on deck gathering came hours after the president on Wednesday evening removed Prescott as campaign manager to replace him, who has been serving as deputy campaign manager. Prescott was emotionally and hurtful, and handing the campaign to Stephan. Two senior campaign officials told Fox. They added that Stephan encouraged everyone to ignore the media-driven narrative that the president was a losing prospect Democratic nominee. Well, we'll have to see how this guy handles the campaign. I've never heard of him. In fact, I didn't even know that there was any handover power to the manager in the first place, because it really, for whatever reason, Bear may change now so that they can move critical pieces forward. You are correct. You are very correct. Movie time. They seem to. I mean, they're moving. You can tell the president's moving forward towards attack mode on Joe. It's like the past few weeks, he's really started revving it up a little bit more, and more to the Democrats. So, I don't know anything about this guy. I've never heard of him, so we'll have to see how he does. I think, Prescott was just like energized. He was great at rallies. He would come out right to the fence where everybody's standing, like, the space between the president and the crowd, and talk to us. He would hand out hats. He would throw about 10. I mean, really, really good guy. So we'll have to see. But what I think is good to have Prescott still there, because also there's not going to be hard feelings, and we're not going to have another damn book, a tell-all book. We don't need any more of those. There's enough distractions as there is, and he's a good player to the team. So when it comes to having, there's no indication of that I've heard why they switched hands. And we'll just have to wait and see. Due to these frick-tired mask orders that some states got, Alabama did actually, in a Republican governor, did say there was going to be a mandatory mask executive order, unfortunately. But in Ohio, this is what the sheriff's got to say about all that. And there are more sheriffs that continue to speak up.
How's everybody doing today? I'm the Butler County Sheriff, Rick Jones. I'm here today. Our phone, we're getting calls, we're getting emails, we're getting texts. The governor has, I believe, he's just completed the mandatory mask wearing for Butler County, several of the counties in the state of Ohio. It's going to be mandatory, the mask wearing. And I'm here we don't have the orders, what he's put out yet, but I can tell you this, that I want to make sure everybody understands. I am not the mask police. I am not going to enforce any mask wearing. That is not my responsibility. That is not my job.
Bravo.
People should be able to make that choices themselves. I didn't put this order out, and it's getting to the point people are scared. People are calling and asking, do we have to wear the mask in our house, in our cars? It's getting kind of ridiculous at this point. But I believe, as the sheriff in Butler County here in Ohio, the economy is starting to try to get back to where it was. You can't go to restaurants, and at one time you were looked down on if you tried to go to church, and the churches were closed, and It's totally out of control. It should be left up to the individual if they want to wear a mask. If someone's sick, I can understand the mask wearing, but for all of us to have your temperature taken, to have to wear a mask, where is it going to stop? I've checked with some people that I know that work in the hospitals, the hospital staffs. Most hospitals in Ohio have laid people off because of this. They've laid people off. You go to the emergency room, you have to wait longer. There's people that are still not working because of it, and this makes it harder to wear these masks, and for everyday citizens that aren't sick and have no symptoms to have to wear a mask. I'm not a scientist, but I want you to know that the police are busy. Our budgets have been cut, the fire departments, everybody has less just in the past few months. This does not make it better. What you have is don't call 911 because someone is not wearing a mask. If the health departments want to control and take care of who's not wearing a mask, let them put a little yellow light on their car and they can stop people and go in. They will not like the response. People are tired, they're wore out. I think we could have done this in a different way. But make no mistake about it, I, as the Butler County Sheriff, am not enforcing any mask wearing whatsoever to the public. And my deputies will not enforce it. We've got more important things to do. It's all we can do to keep up with fighting crime, locking people up and making sure they're safe and the employees are safe. But again, I'll take any questions. I have a few questions over here. Would you like to ask me a few questions, please?
Sheriff, it looks like you're getting a lot of support on Facebook, reference people not having to wear masks, and you're not enforcing them to wear masks. Do you think it's hurting businesses?
Oh, it's killing them. All you got to do is drive by the businesses and talk to business owners. I know people that are waitresses and waiters and working barbers that have lost their business, have lost their shops, and they've made them sneak and have to do things that they normally wouldn't do, and it's killing us. Please try to come down and talk to regular working people. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a doctor, but hey, wash your hands, keep yourself clean, wear your mask. That should be your choice, unless you're sick. Then that's a different story. But to come in and make it mandatory, you're not helping anything. But I want people to know that the sheriff's office, now I don't know what other police departments do, that'll be up to them. But I can guarantee you that they're not going to enforce this. And people are going to call the police. Don't call dispatch centers in Butler County. Don't call mine anyway, the sheriff's office. We cannot respond to people not wearing masks. Call the health department. They want to enforce them. Like I said, let them put a little light on their car and they can go out and they can stop people. I cannot do that, and nor will I.
Okay, so what do you say to people who are commenting saying, well, Sheriff, it's the governor's orders. Isn't it your job to enforce those orders?
Not to enforce the mask wearing. I'm not going to do that. It's also my responsibility, and I've sworn to the Constitution, to enforce the law and support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Ohio. And that's what I am going to do, period. It's pretty simple.
So what would you say if they started closing businesses down again?
I hope they do not do that. There comes a part, we're open, we need to stay open. Like I said, the hospitals that I'm not aware of that are inundated and they're waiting outside and they're in an emergency state in Butler County. That's not what I'm hearing.
So if people aren't to call the sheriff's department because they see somebody without a mask, who should they call?
They should call the health department. They're the ones that or call the governor's office and let them know. And I don't have the personnel to enforce mask wearing and mask wearing in buildings or mask wearing in your house, mask wearing in your car, mask wearing in your basement. There has to be a point to where if you want to wear a mask, wear a mask. And if you don't, fine. I wear a mask and I'm okay with the mask that I wear. And I wash my hands, but I wash my hands anyway. And we've got different mixed messages, but I want to make it clear that in Butler County, that's not my responsibility, and I'm sworn in to enforce the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Ohio, and pulling people over or stopping people or giving them citations for wearing a mask. I am not doing that. Period.
That's all I have, Sheriff. Thank you.
I want to tell everybody that's out there listening, I'm sure this will evolve and change as we go. It does every day. And I wish that leaders in these high places would come down and actually get out of their offices and actually come in and talk to us one-on-one and talk to us and feel the pain that we're going through and see the suffering. I've had employees that have had this illness. I've had prisoners that have had this illness. But it's totally, we're controlling it here, but sometimes we don't need government's help. Remember the old saying, we're from the government, we're here to help you. Sure they are. Hey, God bless everybody. Have a safe time. Thank you.
No, I like that guy. That's the kind of sheriffs we need. Screw stupid shit, because it's not necessary. You know, at other places I hear they piss and moan about masks, right? Yet they some still think Dittmer is doing an okay job. So it's kind of contradictory, isn't it? You should wear a mask if you want to. Exactly what that man said. And hopefully people there's many, I should say, sheriffs in all states that feel the same way. They ain't got time for this silliness. And there are Karens and Carls out there who are gonna light up the phones because nobody's wearing a mask. You know they're out there. You do? Oh, jeez. I have to because I'm in healthcare. That's understandable. I'm around patients or clients, and it's very uncomfortable. Very, very uncomfortable. It does make you sick. It almost makes you claustrophobic. You can't, I don't know about you, Neil, does it make it hard to concentrate because you always got that thing in your face and you can't breathe hardly? So I think in some jobs there's absolutely no reason to. I see it, and they look so unhappy. They look very miserable. Speaking of the law officers, you have crazies like Cortez and or Omar and everybody else like that. Nancy want to defund the police. So we saw what happened in Chaz Chop, and it didn't go so well, did it, without the police? Yet they still want to defund it. You have New York taking millions of dollars out of the police budget. You have Portland, who's actually super defunding the police. They want to get rid of it. Now, I'm not sure how true this is, but they want to replace it with Antifa / Muslim police people. Whatever the hell they want to call it. You can't call them police. They don't like the police, right? Oops, wrong one.
Assistant to the President for Domestic Policy. Jerron, welcome. I don't think we've spoken before, so welcome to America's Newsroom.
Thanks for having me, Sandra.
Yeah, great to have you here this morning. I was really struck by the words of the mayor of the city of Chicago there, Lori Lightfoot. She said, let's talk about the real root cause of the violence that we're seeing and the lack of opportunities for young men of color. She said, we're not going to change this and turn this around in a few weeks. What is the conversation that you're having at the White House with the president on that potential change?
Well, I think that's always been our playbook, that we realize that opportunity has to happen in some of these communities. With the White House Opportunity Revitalization Council, as well as the Federal Interagency Reentry Council, all of those councils are focused on opportunity and creating opportunity where they've never had it before. We frankly have been to Chicago several times and have had convenings to deal with this very issue, but we haven't had any luck with working directly with the mayor since she's taken office.
Well, talk to us more about those efforts. I mean, you just heard her there at that press conference. And by the way, we invite her on this program all the time to talk, because her viewpoints on the defund the police movement were really interesting. She sort of had this be careful what you're asking for, because we would have to eliminate the lowest level of our police force, many of whom, a majority of whom, are African American.
Yeah, and that makes no sense. I think what we tried to do is we did a convening there with Danny Davis, Congressman Danny Davis, and we put politics aside and convened some community leaders, looked at how we can leverage opportunity zones in hard-hit areas and create jobs for those communities. And we're willing to go back and do the work. I mean, these issues aren't about politics, it's about outcomes. And honestly, some of these things have happened for over 30 years that, you know, many leaders promise that they want to do reform and don't lift a finger. But I would invite the mayor to work with us. We've worked with other Democratic mayors. If you look at the city of Birmingham, we've done some work with them, and we're really moving the needle in those communities.
The police chief from McAllen, Texas, who that just lost those 2 police officers, went on Fox News Channel earlier today to react to these growing calls to defund our police at a time when many say it's time to defend them. Listen.
What we have right now is a policing system that's the best in the world. And I will not say to you that it is flawless. And it's not flawless because we are human beings. And human beings make mistakes and do bad things. So, but there isn't a better system out there that we know of in the world.
This isn't just a Democrat versus Republican issue. You know, you've seen it show up in the polls, John, that there are bipartisan calls for police reform. So you look at this so closely. Where do you see common ground? Where do you see agreement? Where do you want to see change?
Well, there's definitely common ground on creating a co-responder program, which would invest in social workers joining a police officer while they're on the job and dealing with issues of mental health or drug addiction or issues dealing with homelessness. There's also common ground on certification, making sure each police department has the highest police standards, especially when it comes to issues like use of force. And there's even common ground on looking at how do we deal with issues such as racial profiling. But it's all about getting onto the legislation. Senator Scott really pushed to have that done in the Senate so we can have this conversation. But too many people on the left are playing politics with it instead of getting the work done. But we're willing and waiting to do just that.
There seems to be a lot of talk from Republicans when we look at 2020 and you see this issue as it takes shape, that Joe Biden wants to defund the police. His campaign is making it very clear that he has actually opposed that movement. They support the need for urgent overhaul after the killings of many black men and women across the country. Here's a bit from a Joe Biden interview last week, and I want to get your reaction to it. Final side.
Surplus military equipment for law enforcement. They don't need that. The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is that...
Do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
So he's talking about redirecting some of the funding. So Duran, finally, just how does this issue take shape? We're light years away from actual election day, but this has emerged as one of the biggest issues as we work our way towards November.
redirecting some of the funding is the wrong direction to go into, because many of these police departments need the resources to train and recruit from the community. Of course, when you have overwhelming violence in certain communities, you want to do it all you can to protect that community. We're looking at communities where you saw a 1-year-old die in New York, or a 4-year-old die in Kansas City. We need to figure out a way to give the police the resources they need to do their job, to create safety for those communities.
How would you characterize the president's progress on this issue?
I think he's moving the needle. Before we had the pandemic, you had violent crimes shrinking all around the country. It's just really been those pockets of urban areas and major cities that have had this problem because they've been working against the president instead of working with him. And again, these are nonpartisan issues. We have to do what's right by the people.
Jerron Smith, thanks for coming on this morning. Hope to have you back again soon. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Because I'm going to create jobs.
I'm Hispanic and I vote for Mr.
Dang it. Sorry about that. Oh, goodness. Now these men and women put their lives on the line every day to protect us. We cannot defund the police. They risk their lives every day, 24/7, to make sure that your family and everybody's family is protected. These left-wing groups cannot understand or do not want to have the discussion of black-on-black violence that occurs. They want to always avoid it continuously. A couple days ago, they had a roundtable to discuss this issue, and the president just
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by the Vice President of the United States.
The president takes all of these issues head on. He's not shy at all to find answers.
Great to have you here. Nice group, some familiar faces. So thank you all very much for being at the White House. Very special house, very special place. I'm grateful to be joined by citizens whose lives have been saved by law enforcement heroes, and that's what they are, they're heroes. And they're being very unfairly treated over the last long period of time, but over the last few years, it's terrible what's happening. We're also joined by two amazing officers, South Carolina Deputy Sheriff William Kimbrough. Where's William? William? What happened to William? Okay. Oh, okay. That's a good excuse. That's good. And Palm Beach County Deputy Sheriff Corey Reese. Hi, Corey. Good. In recent weeks, our country's police officers have been really under siege. I want to thank, first of all, I do want to thank Vice President Pence for all the work he's done on this, and in particular, Attorney General Bill Barr, because the job he's done has been amazing. It's been 24 hours a day. I guess I could say 28 hours a day, right? It never ends, but it's been a great job that you've both done. We appreciate it. Mike, we appreciate it very much. But our officers have been under vicious assault, and hundreds of police have been injured and several murdered. You've been reading about it just like I've been seeing it. Reckless politicians have defamed our law enforcement heroes as the enemy. They call them the enemy. They actually go and say they're the enemy, and even call them an invading army. These radical politicians want to defund and abolish the police from our nation. At first, when I first heard it, I said, well, that's just something that they're saying that doesn't, but they actually are trying to do it. You look at what's going on in Minneapolis, you look at what's going on in many Democrat-run areas. But they want to defund and they want to abolish. Far-left mayors are escalating the anti-cop crusade, and violent crime is spiraling in their cities. It's all far-left cities where they have no understanding of what has to be done. They don't have a clue. And I will say that we put on a very powerful rule and law that you get 10 years, you knock down a monument. If it's a federal monument, you go to jail for 10 years. And if it's anything else, we tell them we work with the states to help them. But if you do anything where it's a federal monument, and there are a lot of them up there, and nobody's been attacked, nothing's been attacked since we did, 10 years in jail, monument or statue. In one recent week in New York City, this is hard to believe, shootings were up 358%, and yet they spend all their time, they want to do Black Lives Matter signs outside of Trump Tower. They ought to spend their time doing something else, because I'll tell you what, 358% increase in shootings in New York. Last month, over 300 people were shot. NYPD retirements have quadrupled, and they're going up even further. And New York City is out of control. Unfortunately, my place, I love it, but it's out of control. It was doing so well. Rudy Giuliani, whether you like Rudy or not, he did a great job. He was the greatest mayor in the history of New York. Murders in Atlanta are up 133% compared to the same period last year. And one of the victims was an 8-year-old girl, and we've had younger than that in Chicago last weekend. In the last 2 weeks, 105 Americans were shot in Philadelphia and Minneapolis. The city voted to disband the police department and cut it way down, but disband it ultimately. The radical politicians are waging war on innocent Americans. That's what you're doing when you play with the police. My administration is pro-safety, pro-police, and anti-crime, and I will say, I just see a new number came in from Chicago. This weekend was a scourge. This weekend was, I guess, 20 people killed and many shootings. Many shootings, far worse than the last week. So things are happening that nobody's ever seen happen in cities that are liberally run. I call them radical lib. And yet they'll go and march on areas and rip everything down in front of them. If that's what you want for a country, you probably have to vote for Sleepy Joe Biden, because he doesn't know what's happening. But you're not going to have it with me. So we've been very strong on law enforcement. We'll be doing things that you'll be, I think, very impressed with. Numbers are going to be coming down, even if we have to go in and take over cities, because we can't let that happen. When you have 20 people killed, 22 people killed in one weekend in Chicago, and you have 88 shootings, it's not even conceivable. That's worse than Afghanistan, I hate to say it. That's worse than any war zone that we're in by a lot. It makes them look like tame places by comparison, so we're not going to let it go on. We're not supposed to wait for them to call, but they don't call. We've asked Chicago, would you like us to go in and help? And they don't want to say anything. And we've called many of the cities, would you like us to go and help? We've done a great job in Portland. Portland was totally out of control, and they went in, and I guess we have many people right now in jail, and we very much quelled it. And if it starts again, we'll quell it again very easily. It's not hard to do if you know what you're doing. So I just want to thank everybody for being here. I'd maybe ask Vice President Pence to say a couple of words, and then I'd like Bill Barr to say something, and we'll go around the room. Okay? Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's a real privilege to be here with the law enforcement officers who are gathered here and families whose lives have been impacted so profoundly by the courageous efforts of men and women in law enforcement. I can assure you that while some are talking about defunding the police under this president and this administration, we're going to defend the police. And we're going to back the blue, because we understand that while tragedies happen, and we'll always look for ways that we can improve public safety. The president's taken steps and taken executive action to provide new resources to improve public safety and law enforcement around the country. I want to assure you that you have a president who knows what the people gathered around this table know, is that most of the men and women who put on the uniform of law enforcement every day are the best people in this country. They risk their lives every day to make a difference in our communities, just like they've made a difference in all of your lives. And so I want to thank you all. I want to thank you for being here at this for this conversation, because the American people will greatly benefit by being reminded of the incredible contributions that our law enforcement community makes each and every day, and I appreciate your willingness to tell that story.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me say what an honor it is for me to serve under a president who is such a strong supporter of law enforcement. I've said repeatedly that, to my mind, there is no more noble profession in our country than serving as a law enforcement officer. The police put their lives and well-being on the line every day for us, and their jobs have never been more difficult than it is today. Today we suffer many unprecedented social ills. Kids growing up without fathers, alienated young, angry men, gangs engaged in the most brutal kinds of violence, increasing mental illness and homelessness, and a drug epidemic inflicting casualties beyond anything that we've experienced in a major war, and an increase in sexual assaults and child exploitation. You name it. And who is expected to deal with all of this? As other institutions fail and abdicate their responsibility, who is expected to stand their ground and pick up the pieces? The police are. And that's why I say their job, the job we ask them to do today, has never been more challenging. I believe it's important to understand that just like any other institution, there's always room for improvement. And over the past several decades, there's unquestionably been a lot of progress and reforms in policing that's improved policing and life for the officers, their families, and their communities. We have the most professional police in the world. Now, obviously, the event in Minneapolis was ghastly, and I haven't heard anyone attempt to defend it. And it has rightly brought about an urge to make sure we continue reforming and we finish the job. And I think that law enforcement understands and agrees that the concerns of the African American community regarding excessive use of force must be addressed. But we also have to be careful and not throw the baby out with the bathwater. And so extremist reactions like defund the police are trying to pull us in exactly the opposite direction of where we have to go. We have to give law enforcement more support, more training, and resources. And I think the executive order that the president signed last month strikes exactly the right balance. It's supportive of the police, and it also addresses legitimate concerns about excessive force. So our nation needs to gain a renewed appreciation of the noble work done by our police officers in protecting our communities. And I thank the President for convening this roundtable to highlight the good work done by our men and women in blue. Thank you, Mr. President.
Maybe what we'll do is we'll go around the room, and maybe you could introduce yourself and explain exactly what's going on. You have an incredible story, please.
Hi, my name is Kamira Boyd. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. Well, on June 11th, 2019, my baby started choking on breast milk, and the first thing I started to do was just run out the house and jump in the car. While leaving out of my neighborhood, Officer Kimbrough came. He was coming into the neighborhood, and he immediately pulled me over, and we immediately jumped out, and he just took her from my arms and proceeded helping her. And yeah, thank you.
Saved her?
Saved her.
Really? Wow. You don't hear those stories. That's why I think it's important to have a meeting like this, a little different, and it's the meeting that we should have about 100 times out of almost 100 this is the one because the police do such a great job, and there's an example. That's fantastic. That's fantastic. And did you know the gentleman on your left? Come on, let's go. Let's tell that story, please.
What do you mean, like?
No, you know? Do you want to go ahead? Please, yes, go ahead.
Mr. President, Vice President, Attorney General Ball, thank you for having us here, other distinguished guests. My name is William Kimbrough. I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. I work for the Berkeley County Sheriff's Office. As Kamir was saying, on July 10th of 2019, while I was patrolling the unincorporated district of Summerville, South Carolina, I came across Kamira and her grandmother speeding in a car. I conducted a traffic stop on that vehicle, and as soon as those vehicles stopped, lady later identified it. Was it your grandmother, Kamira?
It was my stepmom.
Oh, your stepmom had jumped out of the vehicle and was frantic and said, my baby, she can't breathe. And I kind of stepped back and I said, what? And, you know, the rest was captured on my body cam video that's since gone viral. But as soon as I made entrance over, stepped up to Kamira, I instantly asked her for the baby, who is now my goddaughter. And godmom over there, Noni. Hi, Noni. Say hi, Noni. And so yeah, we've been blessed, and it's been a wonderful experience. Wonderful.
Great job.
Thank you.
Well, that's what I meant when I kiddingly said. That's what I meant when I kiddingly said, you know the gentleman on your left, because you really know him.
Oh, okay.
That's what I meant, and great job you've done. Thank you very much on behalf of all of us. And Kamira, congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both. Please, go ahead.
It was about 2 weeks ago. I was laying in bed with my other 3 kids, and, well, I forgot to introduce myself, sorry. Sarah Bohan, we have 4 kids, and we're from Roanoke, Virginia. I was laying in bed, and my sister happened to be home, and my husband ended up calling her and asking her to count how many kids were home. And she got up and looked inside of my boy Spencer's room, and he was not there. And his window was open. And so we instantly saw that he was missing. And he is autistic nonverbal and doesn't really have sense of danger. So when he goes missing, it's like life or death. You got to find him as fast as you possibly can. So we instantly called the police, and my husband rushed home from work, and they called the search dogs out. And within 12 minutes, they found him. He had ran up into the woods. Someone had spotted him sitting in the middle of the road, and he pulled over, and they tried to get him to come to him, but of course he bolted and ran up into the woods. And following behind the dog, going in and out of the trees, it was actually really cool, because I could imagine him doing that exact thing of going in and out of the trees and sliding down the creeks, and I'm sure he was having the time of his life because he was free. But we were able to find him, and the dog's ears perked up right when he was within 15 feet, and I yelled his name, and he sat down, and I instantly ran over to him, and we were able to carry him back, and he was safe, and the only thing he had on him was 4 ticks, so he was good.
That's great. So again, the police did a great job, and the group did a great job. And so Spencer has no sense of danger, so you would say basically he's very brave, okay? View it that way. Good. Thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Thank you. Brooke, please.
Mr. President, thank you. I got to meet almost everyone. My name is Brooke Rollins. I have the extraordinary honor of serving this president as his domestic policy chief every day in this White House. And I will say there's a lot of brave people in the room, probably no one more so than our 2 officers. But this mom not only has, Mr. President, her 9-year-old here, but she has her 4-year-old, her 3-year-old, and her 10-month-old here. And her husband, Spencer, just took them into the other room. So this is bravery at its finest for all the moms in the room who've sort of manhandled lots of children children. So thank you for being here, and certainly you too, and that beautiful baby girl. What an honor to have you and all of you with us today. Mr. President, you mentioned New York City, Atlanta, Chicago, Philadelphia. The lack of leadership, I think, happening in some of our most ravaged cities around this country is really astonishing. But I think it's really important to note that that failure is a choice. And it is a choice, Mr. President, that I know you would never make. I have seen you now more than 2.5 years stand with law enforcement, stand with the mothers and the fathers in this country who are fighting for a chance at the American dream. That dream is not possible without a law enforcement that stands for the rule of law and for safe and secure communities. So thank you so much for your leadership. Everyone here today, thank you for coming. What an honor it is to have you in your house here at the White House on this day. And special thanks to the moms who were brave enough to bring the little ones in to tell their story on behalf of these amazing men and women serving in blue. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Brooke. What's more astonishing to me is that we'll call, Bill will call, Vice President will call, I'll call. You'll call leaders of these cities, Democrat leaders, and we don't care if they're Democrat or not. They happen to be in every case. But we'll call them and we'll say, do you need help? And they'll say no. They said, but you just had 40 people shot and many people killed this weekend. And they'll say, no, we're okay. And I'll say, what's that all about? And we're tired of those answers. We're tired of those answers. So thank you. To me, that's astonishing. Thank you very much, bro. Please.
My name is Kenneth Bearden. I'm from Louisville, Kentucky. And I'm here today because I'm a man in recovery. At the age of 11 years old, I used substances for the first time. And by the end of that summer, I had overdosed 7 times already. I'm one of them people that once I put a minor mood-altering substance in my body, I cannot stop. I did not stop using alcohol or drugs until the age of 24. And through that time, at the age of 11 to 24, I have overdosed over 30 times. And at least a dozen of them times, I've had police officers there on site administering Narcan, saving my life. And my son would not have his father today if it wasn't for the police officers, the men and the women who administer that Narcan. And just that, my son gets to have his dad today because of that. And I get to help others along the way because of police officers, because of the people who have helped me along the way. And I'm truly grateful to be here.
And how are you doing now then? So that's a lot of times that you had
yes.
difficulty.
So,
how are you doing?
I've got 6 years sober now, and I am one semester away. I'm one semester away from having my bachelor's degree in social work. I have a house. I have full custody of my son. I work for Addiction Recovery Care as a community liaison, helping other alcoholics and addicts get into recovery and providing support for them. I'm living my purpose and my passion.
That's fantastic, Joe. Thank you very much. That's an equally incredible statement. You understand what you're doing now, so that's great. 6 years, almost 6 years. That's fantastic. Good luck. We'll see you in, let's say, celebrate in 10. Okay, we'll see you in 10.
Yes, sir.
So we'll see you in another 4 years. All right? That's fantastic news. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Please.
Good afternoon, Mr. President. Thank you so much for having me here today. My name is Rhonda Norris. My story started when I was coming home from school one day. I teach. And I was broadsided in an intersection by a truck who ran a red light. I have no recollection of the accident. My first memory was a policeman reaching through the shattered window and checking for a pulse. And I was in and out of consciousness, and he continuously urged me to stay awake and stay with him. Very soothing, very calm, and was calling on his radio for an ambulance and first responders, which his being there sped up the process dramatically. He's the one who told me we're going to put a sheet over you to cut you out of the vehicle. I couldn't move. I was trapped in the vehicle, and also my injuries made me incapable of movement. He also followed the ambulance to the hospital. He gathered up all my personal belongings that he could find at the accident and brought them to my husband at the hospital and explained to him that I had regained consciousness. Stayed with my husband until the tests were done and they said she's going to be okay. The most amazing thing to me about this state trooper is that he was off duty. He didn't have to do any of that.
Right.
He was just happened to be at the scene of the accident and immediately responded and sped up my rescue, and I'm eternally grateful to him for doing that.
Well, that's great. Thank you very much. It's an incredible story. So how seriously, how long did it take to recover? How bad was it?
I missed 5 weeks of work. Still have some injuries that'll never go away, but I am very, very thankful to be here.
That's a great job. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Please.
Mr. President, I'm Perry Cleet, pastor of Lighthouse Baptist Church in Jonesboro, Tennessee.
Good.
And our church watched over the last few weeks as the way that our police officers were treated all over the country. And it was all over the news about how they are such, they've been demonized and disgraced and dishonored. And we got our heads together and thought, what can we do as a small church in a small town to honor our police and to let our voice be known? Their voice is loud, that blame all this on police officers. The voice of small town America is seldom heard. So we just set up a little ceremony. We went through the chief of police and the public safety director, and we asked them if we could hold a public ceremony on the steps of the courthouse on Main Street in Jonesboro on July 4th at 11 o'clock in the morning and present each member of the Jonesboro Police Department with a check for $1,000. And we did that, and it shouldn't have, but it made national news. I think small towns all over America feel like we do, that we want our voice to be heard, that we love law enforcement, our local police officers, and if we can do something to support them and encourage them, then that's what we want to do. And we feel very good about what we did.
Well, that's a great story. I thought you were going to tell me that they wanted to arrest you for giving them a couple of bucks, and they deserve it very much. But, I've heard the other end of those stories also. You're not allowed to do anything. And you're right about it. They've been, what the police have been going through over the last number of years, in all fairness. It's been starting, but it's never been like this, has it? It's never been like this. It's crazy. It's crazy. And they'll find out. It'll go the opposite direction, unfortunately, at some point. It'll go absolutely opposite when they see, and you're going to have some defunding and abolishing, and you'll see numbers like nobody would ever believe. And they're going to say, let's get our police back as soon as we can, right? But that's great what you just said. That's a fantastic thing.
Yes, sir. We were thankful that it's a small town and a small police department. It was only 23 employees, so it wasn't that big a hit.
That's a lot.
It was a blessing to them.
That's a lot. That's a good job. Thank you very much.
Mr. President, I've already heard, I got a note written to the church that didn't identify the officer, but said I'm an 83-year-old widower. And one of the officers brought by a sum of money and gave to me to put back to pay my utility bills this winter, and told me it was a gift from Lighthouse Baptist Church. That's what one officer, and it's just a week ago, but that's what one officer did with that gift that we gave.
That's great. Great stories. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
And Mr. Vice President, for having us. My name is Debbie Wisner. I'm local. I live in Maryland. And my story's not very dramatic. It's just one that my purse was stolen. My purse. People have it happen to them. My credit cards were canceled. And my cell phone, we put a special note on it that said, if found, please call this number. Nothing came of it. A couple nights later, in the middle of the night, at midnight, the phone rings. And a gentleman says, I found your phone. I have your phone. Would you offer a reward for it? And I said, of course. My husband said, are you nuts? And he said, I'll bring it to you. I gave him my address and hung up the phone and called our police department, because that's who we turn to when there's a situation. My husband had another idea. He wanted to do something else, but I said, no, we're going to let the police do this. There's no shooting tonight. So the police came, they gave us their cell phone number, they went away around the corner and they said, when he pulls up, give us a ring, we'll be there. Sure enough, he pulled up, he comes out of the car, it's 2 o'clock in the morning now. And the police, 2 squad cars were there immediately, which is what we need in our communities.
Right.
And they checked him out. He did, in fact, find the phone, and I gave him a reward and thanked my police officers, and I'm grateful that we have community policemen that are willing to come at 2 in the morning and do this silly thing.
That's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
2 in the morning, why did he, that's a strange time. So you found him to be okay, even though he came at 2 in the morning?
He came at 2 in the morning, but so were our policemen.
Yeah, no, they were there.
And that's the only reason
That's
we were
great.
okay with it.
Good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really nice. Please.
Mr. President, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I, like many others, we support you in supporting our law enforcement officers and providing safe communities. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for being here as well, your hard work. And obviously to the Attorney General Barr, thank you. And to law enforcement officers that are here and their families, and to your staff, Mr. President. Although it shouldn't matter, Mr. President, I'm kind of a unique bird, if you will. I'm a Democrat, I'm an elected official, I'm African American. I have 8 years or 12 years of experience in the Georgia House of Representatives, 8 years as county exec. And as county exec, I've had to manage a very large, probably one of the largest police departments in the state of Georgia. But I've also had the unfortunate experience of having to meet with family members who lost a loved one from a police shooting. That was probably the most difficult part of my job. But I've also had to deal on the other side where I lost 2 police officers in one night, among several others I lost, but I lost 2 in one night. By the way, they happened to have been African American. And going to meet with their family members as well, young wives with young babies, and having to experience seeing them lose a loved one is nothing anybody would want to do. But I can tell you this, Mr. President, by and large, most law enforcement officers, those men and women who honorably wear their uniforms each and every day to go out, when they're running towards a situation, others are running from it. So we have to stand with them. And I'll say this, I have 2 words. We need more funding for police officers, not less funding. And here's why I say that. When you look at law enforcement and the equipment, that's important for them because it's protecting, save their lives as well as saving others' lives. But clearly more money is needed to buy less lethal enforcement types of tools like the bowler, what they call the bowler wrap.
Right.
We also need resources for them. Officers usually, almost always, only get the psychological exam prior of being hired. It's part of the examination of getting hired. But afterwards, they're not given those type of psychological exams or assessments. And when you look at them, they've been on, let's say, the beat 4 or 5 years nonstop, and the number of calls they're getting, the number of situations. That's the way we can detect, are they burned out? Do we need to put them somewhere else? That's important. And finally, Mr. President, community policing is important, that relationship, that trust, being fair, but enforcing the law. And most people, including black people, they want law enforcement to be out there enforcing the law. I think people just want it to be, they want them to be fair, they want them to be swift in justice. And we lost a baby girl too in Atlanta, 8 years old, and it wasn't to a police officer. More people have died from the protest of Black Lives Matter than prior to that. And so sometimes it's hypocritical, it's almost as if some black lives matter, but all black lives should matter, and all lives should matter. So I thank you, Mr. President, for what you're doing, and I stand solidly with you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Beautiful.
That's very promising.
Please.
Good afternoon, President Trump, Vice President Pence, and Mr. Barr. and distinguished guests, I thank you for this opportunity to share our family's story. 8 years ago, our 15-year-old daughter was trafficked by MS-13 gang members. She was trafficked over a 1.5-year time period throughout the DMV area. Law enforcement played a fundamental role in the rescue and the recovery of our daughter, and were also vital in the protection and safety of our family, both then and now. Initially, the officers handling our case, albeit well-intentioned, were not trauma-informed and not able to differentiate a runaway teen from a victim of human trafficking. Once we came in contact with trained personnel, former Detective Bill Wolf, our situation improved. Provide resources and training to law enforcement to properly address not only the offenders, but also to the victims and to their families. Because of Mr. Wolf's expertise in this area, we were able to relocate our family to a safe location. We were able to get our daughter the proper resources and help so that she could heal and move on for her life. The law enforcement is crucial to the rescue, to the victims of human trafficking, and I believe we should support them with everything we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great story. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Mr. President, for convening this listening session, and thank you for all the passion and being able to share your stories here on national TV with the president, because it's really important. There's so many people who don't get a chance to have their voice lifted, and having this opportunity to tell your story to a president that's not only going to listen to it but take action is extremely important to the work that we do. And I want you all to know that as you go back home, we're still there with you, and we're willing to come and do all we can to help create safer communities. Since day one, this president's been really focused on that in a unique way. I've spent some time on the road and with my colleague Scott Turner, trying to get local leadership to work with us to not only change those communities but empower people. But having these sessions here is extremely important, because most people don't know. Some people don't know the pain that you all go through. And so having that story be told to millions of people is extremely important. But I think what's most important is that we take this session here and create action, work with our police department, empower our police department, empower our families, so that we can change what's happened over the last 20 years. There's no reason for places across the country in America to have more deaths than a war over in Iraq or Afghanistan. That's not the country that we're about, and this president won't stand for it. And so thank you so much for your Mr. President, for your leadership.
Thank you very much. You're doing a great job, too. Please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm basically here in support of my daughter-in-law and my grandchildren, but I would like to say a personal thank you to Officer Reese here for saving my grandson. I will never forget it, and I will always be grateful. And I would also like to add that I'm a state employee. I work in the city of Atlanta, and I have seen a drastic change in law enforcement coverage in that area. And I see the difference when law enforcement is not visible on the streets. So we've had our challenges there, and it's peaceful now, but when there is a lack of law enforcement within a community, civility breaks down and crime increases. And I don't have any answers to any solutions, but I can just speak on the fact that I have experienced it over the past 3 or 4 months. And I thank you for your invitation here and for your time.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
First of all, Mr. President, Vice President, Attorney General, thank you very much for inviting me here today. It's truly an honor to be here. I'm Deputy Corey Reese with Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. I have been a deputy there for going on 3 years now. Last month in June, I was staying with my wife at a Hampton Inn in Tampa, off duty, of course. Work in Palm Beach County, this is Tampa. We were in the room relaxing, and I could hear a lady in the hallway screaming for help. And so I went outside to see what was going on, and the young lady to my left here was on the floor clutching the child in her arms. She was screaming for help. The child was crying, and there was a man standing above them grabbing at her and the child. Now, my first thought was it was a domestic situation, but clearly there was something wasn't right with the situation, so I separated him, and she said that she doesn't know him and he was trying to take her child. And more people came pouring out of their rooms and were saying the same thing, so I immediately got him separated. I had him sit down in the hallway, and I had someone else call Tampa PD, and they arrived, and at that point I just was keeping the peace between everybody because there were some people getting quite aggressive, with him. It's not, the right time. You have to let law enforcement handle it. It's not a time to take matters in your own hands. So at that point, it was mostly peacekeeping. But I didn't think it would be as big of a deal as it ended up being until the next day some people in the hallway were like, the video's gone viral. It's like 1 million views, and then I'm getting a call saying I'm invited to the White House. I mean, it was completely unexpected. I just doing what I was trained to do, what I was told to do, just being there, right time, right place, and that's it. Again, thank you for having me here.
It's called natural instinct, right? More than anything else. Thank you very much. Great job. Appreciate it.
He's not too far. He's still dealing with it. I don't really want to speak on the case because it's still open. But the main thing I wanted to address is
Well, you've said it all. So that's a case that's still going now? Still going?
well, as far as the hotel.
I see.
Our hotel room with the key,
Ah.
and that he came in and tried to take it away.
Oh, well, good luck with it. Good luck. Beautiful guy, too. Beautiful. Okay, that's just a few stories of the thousands and thousands of stories that we could tell, and we'll probably be doing this again, but the police, they do a great job. They do a fantastic job, and they don't get the kind of, I will say this, the people of this country appreciate the police. They appreciate all they've done. You don't see that if you watch the news. For the most part, you don't see things like this, but they've done a fantastic job. Everybody here is a witness to that, and we see it a lot. The Attorney General sees it every day, but we see it a lot, and I just want to thank the various police departments, law enforcement. They've done an incredible job in this country. Where they're allowed to do their work, they really do a job. So thank you all very much for being here. Good luck with your case. And really, terrific job, everybody. Terrific job. Thank you.
Hopefully you enjoyed that. It's something we all need is a little positivity, especially with all the negativity that the news media and the left want to spew out of their mouth every day about the police officers. There's a lot of good they do for us all, and there's some examples for you. So it is so important that we support our local law enforcements at all means, Again, just say thank you. Probably means a lot to that officer in one day. because of all the bad raps, all the negativity. They want to blame people for black and white violence and all this other crap, cop shooting, black suspects, but they never want to talk about the black on black violence, as said before. So I hope you enjoyed that. I wanted to give you some nice things to have for your day, and a couple more things I'd like to show you. He's gone through hell. President Trump says he would want Michael Flynn back in the White House. I called this a long time ago. President Donald Trump said Tuesday he would welcome back former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn to the White House, saying that Flynn has gone through hell, according to CBS News. While discussing Flynn's senior investigative correspondent, Christine Hedge, asked, "Would you have him back in the White House?" A CBS video reporter exclusive. Well, the White House actually, okay, we already went through that. They always got to repeat themselves, don't they? I would think he'd be a great gentleman. He's great. Excuse me, I think he's a great gentleman. He's great. He's been in the military for many, many decades. Actually, highly respected. What General Flynn went through was so unfair. He was still going through it. The president answered, "If he were a Democrat, it would have never happened, number one. And number two, if it happened, it would have been on immediate extradition with us." Yes, you hear a dog. It would have been, okay, there it is. It is always harder. But in the meantime, I'm here and they're not, the president said. So it's really great that he would be welcomed back. I figure he would, because of a lot of the things that General Flynn has went through. And the reason they keep doing this kind of sort of thing is they're trying to deflect the real issues of the real crimes that they themselves, the Democrats, have committed. And it's kind of like a mirror. It's just reverse. But one day, and it should be soon, let's hope, they will get their karma and be in prison. You can almost hear and see it, right? Clapper saying that the Obama administration gave them the orders to do this. What a prison life would be like for them.
Hi everyone. As you know, and probably you have heard by now, I am a paid actress, and whether or not you choose to believe what is going on around you, it's real. I am a paid actress, and that's probably why you will never hear anything from anyone ever saying, "Oh yeah, I totally used to get drinks from her at this bar in New York City," because I was never a bartender. I never had an economics degree, and I have literally no idea what is going on in Congress. I am an actress. I've been in several pornos and adult films. And when I was reached out to from Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, of course, I took this deal. Now, my job as an actress for Congress is to push an agenda that the Democrats are too embarrassed to push, like the Green New Deal. And it seems a little strange to promote cow farts and the world blowing up in 12 years. But this right here, my scenery in this jail cell, is just a foreshadow of my disappearance from the Congress world. I will be sent to a imaginary prison because I laundered imaginary money, and I will be labeled as a Congress criminal. Anyways, it's been super fun. And hopefully you guys liked my acting skills. I do a pretty good job. if you want to look for me in the future, I am definitely for hire. I'm trying to stay away from adult films, but, you know, when you're good at something, you're good at something. So anyways, guys, it's been great, and I really, really did enjoy being your congresswoman. Hopefully I'll be seeing you soon. All right, bye.
With one of the country's
Always like those. Those are really good. God bless the President of the United States. Thank you for joining Fight for the Republic. God bless the President. God bless the... nobody won lemons. Back in the chest. God bless the Vice President, military, police officers. Please be safe. And everybody supports you, loves you, so keep doing the great job you always do. You're very appreciated once again. Coast Guard, Border Patrol, and God bless the United States of America. And I will see you very soon. Have a wonderful night.
biggest supply chain.
Thank you for the follow. And Facebook says this is copyright material. It is not. They cut my sound out because of this. This is not copyright material.